Alright guys, so in this video we're going to start to work on our user functionality. We want to be able to register a user. There's a bunch of stuff we need to do for that to happen. So the first thing we're going to do is create a model. With Mongoose, when you're dealing with database resources, you need to have a model for each resource. So we'll have a contact model and a user model. So in our root here, let's create a folder called models. And inside models, we're going to create a file called user with an uppercase U. That's the convention for models. And inside our model, we create something called a schema. So we have to bring in Mongoose. So we'll set this to require Mongoose. And then we're going to create a user schema and set that to mongoose.schema, which takes in an object of properties. So what do we want this user to have? We want them to have a name, and we need to give it a type. We're going to say string. Make sure you use a capital S. And then required, we're going to set that to true. All right, and I'm just going to go ahead and just copy this down a couple times. Let's see, 2, 3, 4. And the second one here is going to be an email. So when a user registers, they're going to have an email. Now I'm just going to add on to this unique. So we want to say unique and set that to true because we want emails to be unique. We don't want the same one. Next one is going to be password. It will be a hash password, but it's going to be a string and it's going to be required. And then this last one here, let's make this the date that they register. And the type is going to be date, and we're going to have a default value here, so we'll say default, and we can say date.now, which will put the current date and time in that field automatically. All right, and then the last thing we need to do is export, so module.exports, and we'll set that to mongoose.model, and it's the user model, and then we pass in the schema that we just created, user schema. All right, now we're going to be using this in our user routes file, so we might as well bring that in. So we'll say const user equals, and we'll set it to require, and we're going to go up one level into models and user. Okay, so now we're including our user model, and we can use that within our routes. So before we get into the body of our route here, I want to create some error checking. So basically, if I go, let's see, I just want to actually close that for now. Let's output here. Let's do a res.send of request.body. So what this is going to give me is the data that's sent to the route, which in this case is going to be the email, the password, and the name. That's basically the three fields to register. Now, in order to use request body, we need to actually add a piece of middleware to our server.js. Okay, and this middleware used to be third party. You used to have to install something called body parser, but now it's included with Express. So we're going to put this right here. We'll just say init middleware, and we're going to do app.use, and we just have to say express, and we want JSON data to accept JSON data, so we just say JSON, and then we just want to put this extended false value. So by doing that, now we can accept data, or I should say the body data, whatever. So let's go to Postman and let's make a post request to HTTP localhost port 5000/API/users. Right now, if I send, we get an empty object because there's nothing in the body. However, if I go to body and I choose raw, actually before I do that, let's go to our headers, because since we're sending JSON content, we need to put in a content type. So right here, content type, and we're going to set that to application/JSON. And then in the body, we'll choose raw, and we'll go ahead and send. Let's do a name. This has to be JSON formatted, so double quotes. Let's say name. I won't do my name. Let's do John Doe. And let's send email Okay, so if I go ahead and send this, check it out. In here, it's giving us the data we send because we're just sending the request.body. Now, I want to limit the scope of what can be sent and also make sure that certain things are sent. So in order to do that, I'm going to use the Express Validator. And if we go to Chrome here, this is the documentation if you want to check it out. We already installed it. If you didn't, just go ahead and run this. And then we can actually set checks. So in our route, we set a second parameter with brackets, and we can run checks on certain values. In our case, name, email, password. And we can do, for instance, is email, is length, check to make sure it exists, things like that. So that's what we're going to do. And we need to bring in this right here. This const, we need to bring in check and validation result from Express Validator check. So I'm going to go ahead and put that right here. And then let's add a little bit of validation. So in our second parameter, I'm going to put some brackets. Make sure you put a comma as well. And then let's set a check. And the field that I want to check is name. And the second parameter is the message you want, which I'm going to say name is required. And then we add our rules. Now, if I just want to make sure it's not empty, this is a little weird. We need to do dot not and then dot is empty. We need to kind of combine those together. If I save this, Prettier is going to format it a little bit. So that'll check for a name. Now we're going to have some other checks as well. So within the brackets, right under this is empty, or right next to this is empty, let's put a comma and put another check. If I can spell check right. So this time we're going to check email. And the message here will say, please include a valid email. All right, and let's actually make this message right here uppercase N. So please include a valid email, and the rule I'm going to use is email. Okay, that's it. Now I'm going to put another comma and do another check. This is going to be on the password. And the message that I'm going to have is please enter a password with 6 or more characters. And the rule I'm going to use is length. And then we can pass in an object with either a min or a max. So I'm going to say min, and I'm going to set that to 6 and save. Actually, let's change this to match the other messages. We'll just say please add name. Okay, so this by itself isn't going to do anything. This just sets the checks. Down here in the body of the route here, we have to first of all create a variable called errors. And this is we only have to do this for routes that are going to accept data and also need validation. So it's not every route. So let's say errors equals, and then we're going to set this to validation result, which we brought in up top, which takes in the request. Okay, the request is right here. It's now being passed in. And then we want to check to see if errors is empty. And the way that we do that is by saying if not errors dot is empty, which is a function. So we want parentheses here. So if not errors is empty, then let's return res. Now I want to return a 400 status. A 400 means bad request, means that the user did not fulfill the required fields or whatever for the request. Now to send a specific status, we can just say res.status, and I'm going to do a 400. Now in addition to that, I'm going to send some JSON data, so I can say .json. And in here, I'm going to say errors, and I'm going to set that to errors.array, which is a method that gives us an array of the errors. Okay, and that comes from here. So that should give us an array of anything that's missing or just anything that's not right. So let's test this out. I guess I'll just do a res.send right here that says passed for now, just so we can check the validation. So if we go back, so I have a name, I have an email, I don't have a password. So let's see what happens when I send. So notice that we get this object with an errors array, and we get three things in here: location, param, and message. All we really care about is the message, and it says please enter a password with 6 or more characters. Okay, because we didn't include a password. If I get rid of the name and I try to send, now we have another value in our array that says please add name. So these things are now needed in order to move on. So let's go ahead and say name. Actually, I'll just undo, and then let's add a password. So password, this will be a hash password, but just to test, let's just do that and say send, and we get passed because everything was met. All right, and there's a bunch of different ways you can do validation. There's other packages you can use. You can do custom validation, but I really like Express Validator. I think it's pretty clean, and you can see exactly what's going on. You can see the rules and create your own messages and stuff like that. All right, so I think that's going to do it for this video, guys. We have our user model, we have our validation. So in the next video, we want to basically pull the data that's coming from our request, so this stuff here, and get ready to hash the password, put it into the database, and return a JSON Web Token.